What's up, Rooted Collective? Welcome back to Awakened and Rooted, where the veil is thin, the vibes are deep, and the stories will make you question everything. So if you are drawn to the mystical and the metaphysical, you are in the right place. So let's get started. First off, before we get started, I do want to say it looks like it is about to storm outside, so my lighting is horrible. I think I'm going to have to turn on this overhead light to help with lighting, because my ISO is on 2000 right now and it is still looking dark in here to me. All right, so to me, we are looking a little bit better. So the second thing I want to say is that these stories are going to be spooky nurse stories because I am a nurse and I know we have scary stories. So I hope you enjoy it.
Y'all have been showing up and showing out on my page here recently. These past few days, I have gained over 10,000 followers. And I'm just so grateful for that because y'all didn't have to do that. But y'all already know I'm following y'all back and I'm supporting back. But I've also been seeing the messages about more scary story time. So let's talk about some of the not so big scary stories, but just some of the creepy things that I've dealt with working in the healthcare field. If you don't know, my name is Brittany and I used to be a CNA. I'm no longer a CNA. I don't work in a nursing home setting anymore, but let's get into it. So did you know that death has a smell? Yeah, and I'm not talking about decomp. I'm talking about prior to when the spirit leaves the body, death has a smell. I know what it smells like. Did you know that death also has a sound? They call it the death rattle. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of one of those things, if you know, you know, if you've heard it, you've heard it. It's kind of like this guttural, growling type thing that happens in the back of the throat that you can just, yeah. Also, most of the time when residents or patients have a terminal illness, they will have like a day or two of like looking like everything's turning around. But don't be surprised if you see the healthcare workers, the CNAs, the nurses, kind of looking at each other like, because we know they're going to pass shortly. That's kind of like the last hurrah or whatever. I've had people admit to me all types of things on their deathbed, even murdering somebody. Check out my storytime playlist for that one. One time I had a man that was actively dying. He had been actively dying for like the past 2 days. Body shut down, no longer intake or outtake or output, nothing like that. And he sat straight up with like widened eyes and said that somebody was coming to take him, to drag him to hell. Laid back and he was gone. Also, when patients or residents refer to going home, or they say tomorrow I'm going home, or somebody's coming to get me tomorrow, usually they're about to pass away too. When they talk a lot about going home, which is never something physical, like it's in like a spiritual sense of going home or returning to their former self. All the creepy stuff goes down on a graveyard shift, especially 3 o'clock. One time I had a resident tell me when I was in her room changing her that I had brought a man in there with me, and when I turned around to go see what she was pointing at, her radio started blaring music. It wasn't even on the station and there was nothing in the radio, like no CD, no nothing. It just started blaring music. 3 o'clock in the morning. The hell. I truly used to believe that spirits and things of that sort could follow me home or like come home with me because I had that experience before.
Oh, that kind of just cut off, but I can verify pretty much everything she said, except I don't know what the smell of death is. That's not decomp. I don't know. I've never experienced that.
This is a story in which I had to call a rapid response for an exorcism. I will never forget this because this scared the shit out of me at the time when I was a new grad and I was traumatized from this incident. So this was at my old hospital. There was this one room where strange things always happened. At first, I didn't think much of it, but I had a Spanish-speaking dementia patient in that room once, and he kept repeating the word phantasma, which means ghost or phantom in Spanish, over and over. I figured maybe it was just the dementia, but then this is when things took a turn and got weird. About 2 weeks later, another nurse told me that her patient in that room was completely alert and oriented, by the way. Also started seeing shadowy figures walk around. And again, I brushed it off until she said, you know, now that you mention it, a couple months ago, I had a patient who swore her glasses kept being pushed off the bedside, like something invisible was knocking them off. And she kept using the call light for me to come pick it up. And at this point, we were like, okay, that's kind of creepy. Okay, so fast forward 3 months, we had a young female patient. She was probably she was probably in her early 20s. She was admitted for alcohol detox, nothing too out of the ordinary. And so one night, I'll never forget about this. It's about 3 in the morning, and we're all sitting at the nurse's station when out of nowhere, we hear this blood curdling scream. I'm talking full on horror movie scream. Gave me instant goosebumps. We all jumped up and we sprinted to her room, and what we saw gave me nightmares. She ripped out her IV, blood was dripping down her arms, and she was in the corner of the room just staring at us. Eyes wide open. She was scared. She said something's like taken over. Then she started speaking, but it wasn't English. It wasn't even Spanish. It sounded like Latin. I don't know. She was speaking in tongues. Her voice kept changing, deep, kept like echoing off the walls. We couldn't understand a word of it, but it felt wrong, like something evil was coming out of her. God. Then she started slapping herself hard over and over, like no emotion, just blank expression, hitting herself like she was trying to get something out of her body. We had to call a rapid response, not because of her vitals at first, but because we genuinely did not know if she was going to hurt herself or us. Security showed up, the chaplain came. I've worked hundreds of shifts. I've never seen anything like that before or since. The attending came down as well, and we had to sedate her. She even requested the chaplain to read a prayer to her because she felt like something was inside of her. Oh, God. I monitored her throughout the night because of the sedation and placed her back on the monitors, but after that, I never saw her again, and I never knew what happened to her. Yeah, so that's my story, and I will never forget that day.
And that, my friends, will be the day that I will be leaving my job. No, this is not what we signed up for. We did not sign up for exorcisms.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, so this story still freaks me out to this day. Every time I tell it, it gives me goosebumps. I cannot believe that this happened to me and my colleague, but I figured I would share. So I was working a few years ago at a NICU as a night shift nurse here in Dallas, and we do our touch times every 3 hours. And of course, around 3 a.m., I'm kind of doing my touch time. And where I was kind of down the hallway at the very end. It was in the triplet room, but where I was standing, I could see all the way down the hallway. And I'm getting the milk ready, about to put it in the warmer, and I see my friend around the corner. And she is walking to me like fast, and she looks ghostly white. Her eyes were wide. And she said, "Kendall, you need to drop what you're doing and you need to follow me now. You have to come and see this." So I'm like, okay, well, let me put this in the warmer real quick and then I'll follow you. So I put it in the warmer and I start walking down the hallway, around the corner. And as we're walking, she's kind of telling me what happened. And so she was kind of, to give you a layout of the land first, she was in 2 twin rooms. In each room, there was two beds with babies in them. And in between, there's a sliding glass door separating the rooms. So you could open it if there happened to be 4 babies. You could just leave it open. But hers was closed to separate the rooms. And in between each bed spot, there was a computer in between. And she had lullaby music playing on it. And she was in one room with one of the babies, and she was about to draw a lab on it. And all of a sudden, the computer screen shuts off and she notices that the music stopped playing. And so she kind of glances up and she's like, "Oh, that's weird." And out of the corner of her eye in the opposite room, through the sliding glass doors, she sees on that computer something red. So she fully looks at it,
And it is a red devil face, fully taking up the entirety of the screen, staring at her, and like on the screen. And so she immediately drops what she's doing, and that's when she grabbed me. So I'm rounding the corner, fully expecting it not to be there still, after all the time of her coming to get me and coming back. But I round the corner, and from the hallway, I look into the room, and I also see it. So both of us are looking at this. My mouth drops wide open. I get teary-eyed. I'm basically crying because I'm so scared. And I was too afraid to go in that room. So we go into the other room that she was in originally, and I'm standing on the opposite side of the sliding glass door into that room, just staring at this face, this devil face on the screen. And I didn't know what to do. But I'm religious, so I immediately start praying out loud. I said, Lord, please protect us. Please protect this baby. Whatever this is, it is not welcome here. And I just repeated that because I didn't know what else to do. It literally makes my eyes water because it scares the crap out of me. I couldn't make this up. And so I was repeating that for a solid minute and somehow mustered up the courage to say, you know what, this isn't okay. I'm going to turn it off. I take a step towards the door and the screen shuts off. It goes black for a split second, and then all of a sudden it goes back to playing YouTube. Playing like the lullaby music that was on YouTube. And I go in there and I scour it because I am a little bit of a skeptic, and I looked at the search history. I looked at everything that it could have possibly been, like any browsers that were open, anything. I also know that with YouTube, if it's baby lullaby music, generally the commercials that pop up are relatable. So you're going to see diaper commercials and things like that. And I mean, I was so just confused as to what that could have been. And I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, something evil is there. I was so afraid to go back to work. We obviously reported it just in case there was some sort of hacking into the system, but it's a secure system because at the end of the day, it is a hospital. They have a lot of records that they have to keep secure. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Like I said, I can't believe that this happened to me. It still freaks me out to this day, but I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know either. That's another one of those ones that makes me say, I might be looking for somewhere else to work, but I don't know.
Hey, when you see me on your For You page, you already know what it is. I got another story. So this one takes place after COVID, like 2020, 2021. It's got to be 2020 because I hadn't had my daughter yet. But again, working for the CNA agency that I talked about working for before, they had sent me to this new facility that I had never been to. This night I was doing 3 to 11. I had learned my lesson by that 11 to 7, baby. I learned to leave that where that's at. But I get there at 3, I'm doing my rounds, I'm taking care of everybody like I'm supposed to be taking care of them. I'm getting ready for dinner. I think dinner was around 6. And then pretty much after 6, they told me that the shift was pretty much easy after that because everybody went to bed and they would sleep. What I didn't know about this facility is actually it was a 2-story facility. So they had like a first floor and a second floor. This was something coming from a small town. I did not know they had no 2-floor nursing home facilities. So since I had patients at the end of the first hall, I also had patients upstairs because you just had like 11, 12, 13, 14, and then 16 and 17 or whatever was upstairs. So I had to go upstairs. Good thing was that they did have elevators, so I didn't have to walk up and down the stairs pregnant or nothing like that. So I go upstairs to meet my resident. It's this sweet older man. We talk for a little bit. Everything's good. I told him if he needs anything, hit his call light, and I would be right upstairs to check on him and make sure that he's okay. He told me that he was fine to turn off the lights and he was going to go to bed. This resident was in like room 7. That means that the room in the floor under him would have been like room 14 or something like that. This resident was a woman, and I went in to check on her and make sure she was okay too. She said she was fine, but the only complaint that she had was that it sounded like somebody was scratching on her ceiling. So immediately I'm like, okay, if somebody's scratching on your ceiling, that means they're scratching on the resident upstairs. Something has to be scratching on his floor. So I go upstairs to make sure he's okay and he's not out of bed or anything, because I just talked to him and he said he was going to sleep. I cut the lights off. He hasn't hit a call light or anything. I go in there, he's completely knocked out in his bed. When I come in, he wakes up and I ask him, I say, hey, do you know anything about any scratching noises or anything like that? The resident downstairs says that she can hear scratching. He said, it's actually funny that you say that because I've been hearing scratching come from the wardrobe closet in the corner over there. Now, I don't know if y'all know what I'm talking about, but it was like one of the big like wooden wardrobe closets with the 2 doors, and that's what every resident had their clothes in. They didn't have like closets or anything like that at this facility. Everybody had a big wooden wardrobe closet. So I said, that's weird. At this point, he had his little side table lamp on. I went and cut the big light on, and I went to go open the wardrobe closet and see if something was in the wardrobe closet. But before I did that, someone was like, Brittany, you should probably call somebody in here. So I go and grab the nurse outside in the med cart, and I'm like, hey, I know this is weird, this is a situation, but just come in here with me and make sure everything's okay. We open the wardrobe closet, and I kid you not, there are scratch marks, deep scratch marks, all in the bottom of this wardrobe closet. Now, it's important to add that this wardrobe closet was not big enough for a person to just go in and stand in. The only way somebody would be able to fit in the bottom of this wardrobe closet were to be half hanging out, scratching on the floor, or bent over, scratching, kind of like a cat type of thing. I knew it wasn't the resident. The resident was bedbound for the most part. He is not getting out of that bed. So who is scratching this wardrobe closet, okay? We go downstairs, we call security, we get them to check the hallway cameras. Nobody is in the camera or on the camera coming down the hall going into his room. He's not leaving his room. Again, he's bedbound. He's not getting out of that bed. But those claw marks were not anything that a human could have done. Even if they did have long fingers, those were like cat claw marks, like cat, dog, some type of animal claw marks. So we get downstairs and we get back to the nursing station after we checked in with security, and security is left. Where the nursing station is, there's an elevator. That is the same elevator I just took to go upstairs. That is the only elevator to get upstairs, the only way to get upstairs. We're sitting here talking about the situation that just happened, me and this nurse Jackie, and we're watching the elevator go from 2nd floor to 1st floor to the bottom level of which was under the 1st floor, the garage or something like that, open, close, and do it all over again. So this door is acting or opening like somebody's on the elevator pushing a button and somebody's walking off the elevator. Didn't do this the whole night until we went upstairs to investigate the scratching noise. And y'all know what I did. I switched the patient and switched the facility. Get somebody else to do it.
Absolutely get somebody else to do it.
So I'm pretty sure my baby was taken care of by a ghost nurse. Both my babies were jaundice, and my daughter, the youngest, she was more jaundice than my son. So if you don't know what jaundice is, it's when like your either your kidney or your liver don't clean out your body, and your body can build up toxins, and it's not good. So I believe it's more frequent in mixed race babies. And the cure is to either take your baby outside in the sun, or if they're really bad, like my baby girl, you have to be on this UV bed, okay? So, you know, when you have a newborn, you're delirious and you may be hallucinating. Well, I would think that this was that, except that we got evidence from another party many years later. So baby girl, jaundice, she needed a bed. With this care, she needed to have a nurse come every day to measure, is she eliminating, you know, is she urinating, is she defecating, is she eating, is she gaining weight? So she's on her little light bed. She has to be in there like 23.6 hours a day. You can literally only take her up to maybe feed her for a second. And if you feed her, you got to have her by the window. And if you can, try to change her diaper on this UV light bed, okay? This was the creepy part. This nurse that we had was a super mega old lady. And I mean like old as dirt. She had 1 trillion wrinkles. She had hair like mine, except it was pure white and it came down to like her butt. And the crazy part was this little lady would only come between the hours of 11 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning. I wish I could remember her name. I'm sure for some reason the name Juliet keeps coming to mind. And I remember the first time she ever knocked on our door, she gave us a little pamphlet which had like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of an old newspaper article that was about her, and it was something like Jacksonville nurse that she specializes in bilirubin patients. Okay, so at the time, I don't think my former husband and I thought anything of it, because whatever would we know? We're brand new parents, right? Like, we don't know anything, especially not anything about childcare. My baby girl gets better, life goes on. Years later, like maybe 5 to 7 years after this, my former husband is at a different work site. He runs into a colleague's married, had a baby. The colleague's like, oh, but she's jaundiced, so she has to be on this UV light. My former husband's like, oh my God, that happened to our kids, like our daughter, blah, blah, blah. And the guy was like, yeah, but it's really weird. The nurse only comes at night in super weird hours, like 11 to 2 o'clock in the morning. And my former husband's like, what? Like, yeah, it was the same. We always thought that was really weird too. And he comes home and he tells me that story, and I'm like, that's weird. And now that I think about it, this nurse never picked out my baby. She would like put her stethoscope on her chest, but she would have me take the baby out of her little contraption and carry my baby onto her scale. And she would have me open my baby's diaper so she wanted to see consistency and amount. And she wanted me to track how many times my baby was eliminating. Again, it's just to make sure her body is cleansing, toxins like our body's supposed to. I'm very certain that that little nurse was 100% a ghost. I know somewhere in this house I have that newspaper article, and I wish I could freaking remember her name. I Googled it. I can't find anything on the internet yet, but creepy. I'm very certain that it was a ghost. And if any of you live in North Florida and you had a jaundiced baby and you had this super sweet, I mean, her energy was very lovely, very caring. She genuinely cared, but I'm thinking, like, what if that was her passion in life, was taking care of babies that had this special need? And even in her death, she's like, yeah, I'm still going to come and take care of babies. And I never called the insurance company to be like, hey, what the F is up with this? Because I think we were just too delirious and exhausted. But craziness, my baby girl was on that bed for a month. So for a month, like, I didn't leave my house, but I'm an introvert, so I was perfectly happy. Have a good day, warrior.
So if that nurse was indeed a ghost, it had to be her passion in life to take care of those babies who had jaundice. It's creepy that she and her husband's colleague had the same nurse.
Night shift is all fun and games. It's no management. It's good vibes until your dementia patient starts talking about the person they're seeing in their room. And they're a little bit too insistent on the person that they're seeing in their room. And then the other nurse that you're working with is like, listen, that empty room, I just watched someone get out of the bed and walk to the bathroom. And you're like, what? And then you go back to the side of the unit that you're sitting on by yourself. And there's no one over there, and no noise, and no one walking around, except for the paranormal activity.
So you went to nursing school, graduated, took your NCLEX, found your dream job, woke up one morning. You packed your ball bag, packed your Stanley cup, get to work. You go into one baby's room. You go into another baby's room. You turn around and go into another's baby room. Another one. 3 babies with fractures is not something normal. Your hospital does an investigation. They find out shorty right here, she was present with all these 3 babies. You get put on an administrative leave. Somehow, you get your job back. You were so tempted to give another baby a fracture, you turn around and do it to about 3 to 4 more babies. At this time, the hospital was like, what the heck? The hospital shuts that particular department down. They called an investigation. So now you're awaiting trial. That was my baby. That trial would not see the light of day.
That's weird.
This hospice nurse saw the Grim Reaper. I got chills. You have to hear it.
Lights is out. I'm on the Alzheimer's and dementia floor. We got wanderers, so you just never know. You'll see things. My patient in this particular room, she was laying down sleeping. It was dark in her room. The other patient's TV was on. Didn't think nothing of it. As I'm on the phone in the hallway talking to my friend, I see someone reach over my patient's face and go like this. And I stopped my conversation on the phone with my friend. I said, I know I'm not tripping. Somebody's in this room. I go in the room and look around. It was in there. there. Nobody's in there. I figure, okay, while I'm in this room, let me just tuck her in, you know, put her blanket up and make sure she's comfortable and looking good and everything like that. And I come out the room. As I continuously keep walking up and down this hallway, I'm thinking to myself, I know I'm not tripping. Somebody was in that damn room. I know I'm not seeing things, you know. As the night goes by, you know, the shift ends. I get in my car and I'm driving home. I'm thinking to myself, I said, what if I seen the Grim Reaper? And I said, if I come to work tomorrow and this lady's not here, I'm going to flip my shit because I've seen it with my own eyes. I come to work and I come down the hallway, y'all. She's not here, y'all. She fucking died.
Oh, girl.
My dad was in the ICU for a few weeks, and the nurse that was taking care of him was originally from the ER department, and she worked in the ICU as well. And she told me a crazy story that happened like 2-3 days before. She said when she was taking care of my dad, basically she said she was working the ER. This man comes in and they're trying to give him medication, and sorry, I can't talk loud because my husband's sleeping, but they were gonna give him medication, and he was like, why are you guys giving me medicine? I'm already dead. He literally said that. And she's like, we just looked at him and gave him the medicine. Automatically he just vomited everywhere, and then after he vomited, he just fell down, stopped breathing. She's like, they were trying to give him CPR, and as they were giving him CPR, he just passed away. How scary is that? He literally already predicted that he was dead. Yeah, he literally said, I'm dead. What? I can never be a nurse. Much respect to you all. Do you guys have any crazy stories? Drop it down in the comments.
Guys, you are never going to believe what happened at work last night. Actually, I have a scary story. Wait, hold on. That's not even what I was going to tell you. Swear to God, I clock out for a break and walk a mile every shift after midnight. And I'm float pool, so I learn little routes everywhere. And I was at usually what's kind of like a scary spot. And there's an automatic door at the end of the hallway. And I got like 3/4 down the, oh my God, this is so, it's one of those long hallways where like the lights boom, boom, boom as you approach. And then as I got like 3/4 of the way, the double door, like the vestibule area, the outside door opened, but no one was there. And I was like, oh shit, I think there's a ghost. It's the hospital. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Luckily there was like intersecting hallway, but it's not a real hallway. It's like an elevator hallway. I don't know. So I like, but I'm like, oh no, I can't stop there. And then when I turned around to go back, I swear to you, it was like me and the ghost. Like the ghost hit me. When I tell you my ass took off running, like out of a scary movie, running behind me. If security watches that video, they're like, what got into that girl? A damn ghost. I was petrified. Ran back to the unit. I'm like, oh my God, a ghost, a ghost, a ghost. Freaking out. I was like, I'll just finish my walk up here and be a weirdo and pace on my unit right now. Did not get to a mile, by the way. Only got to about like 0.75. Failure. Yeah, absolute failure. Anyway, so then I clock out and I go to the garage, and there's the light that's above my car is flashing. The only one in the, I looked at every other light in the garage, only mine. Boop, 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 boop. Every level I checked on my way out. Boop, boop. I rebuke it in the name of Jesus. What was that? What was that? Nothing will attach to me. I'm covered in blood. I'm covered in the blood of the Lamb. I have never looked behind me and run so fast through the hospital. I also never want that to happen again. Let me be very clear. Petrified. petrified. If anyone can also explain this phenomenon that I've experienced tonight, please let me know. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Over my car? Yeah, I didn't like it at all.
That little boop 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 over top of her car was the least of her worries. I think whatever she ran into her has her so traumatized she can't even really get the story together.
Wow, I just had a really interesting experience. So I have to cover my shirt because it's my company name and people don't need to know where I work. But I was just visiting one of my transitioning patients. She's actually like actively dying. And we were just like, I was just, around the bed with, her daughters, and we're talking, we're having a conversation, just talking about a bunch of random things. And, we come out of the room, we're in the kitchen talking. Well, no, excuse me, in the room, I got a phone call. My phone was on vibrate. I forgot that I turned it on vibrate, so I felt my pocket vibrating. It's like, oh, I got a call. I'm thinking that it's the number, it was a Blue Island number. If you're in Illinois, you know that. I thought the area code, like the number calling, was a different, like, patient's family member. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, I have a patient in that area who's also actively dying. Maybe, this is the phone call. And I saw that I had a voicemail left, right? So when we're in the kitchen, I'm talking to the patient's daughters, and I'm telling them, because this patient specifically, today is Tuesday, she hasn't opened her eyes or talked or did anything. Like, she's kind of been like in a comatose state since, I want to say it was Saturday. When I came to my visit yesterday, as soon as she heard my voice, she opened her eyes. She tried to look at me. She started moving. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, was she waiting to see me, hear me? And, I was the only person that was able to arouse her, over the past 2 days. Obviously when I came today, she wasn't, waking up. She wasn't moving, opening her eyes, none of that. But I was, talking to them about I try as a nurse, especially in this line of work, to keep kind of a little bit of a barrier, and not in an informal, cold way, but just I have to protect my, mental health and my own well-being as well, because this job, when you work in hospice, you see people die all day, every day. And so it can be emotionally taxing and draining. And so, I do my best to try to keep a little bit of a barrier, but there are some patients and families who just poke through that barrier and knock it down, and you get really close, and you get attached. And so I'm telling them about a patient that I had lost back in I want to say it was back in March, if I remember correctly, or either April, one of the two. And I was very close to that patient. She was with me for about 9 or 10 months. I got really close with her daughter, love her daughter down. We are still like this. And I was telling them about her, and, and I was like, I think your mom might be a close, second to that. Not she's second place to that patient, but just she might be another one who I just will remember her, and it'll be difficult for me to forget her because of how impactful she is. And so I leave the visit, I get in my car, and I check my phone because I had a missed call. So I'm thinking, and I'm like, oh, I have a voicemail. Let me listen to the voicemail. Well, it was only a 6-second silent voicemail. There was no talking. There was no nothing, just a silent voicemail. And so I called the number back, and I didn't hear the name of the facility. I thought it was a different facility that I have another patient at. So I'm, talking to the receptionist, and she's like, oh, no, we don't have a patient here by that name. And I'm like, wait, what facility did you say this was again? And she says the name, and I was like, oh, well, yeah, I had a patient here who died back in March or April. I forget now which month it was, but I'm like, yeah, I had a patient there who passed. And the receptionist was like, okay, hold on. She puts me on hold for a few seconds, and then she comes back and she's like, yeah, nobody called regarding that person. I'm not sure why you got a call, but yeah, no one called. And I was like, what the heck? I was literally just talking about that patient or thinking about her. And for me to have a missed call with a silent voicemail from that facility that patient was at and nobody called me. I had to call that family back that I was just with, and I told one of her daughters, like, you will never believe what the heck just happened. Like, we were just talking about how impactful this patient was to me. Obviously, I didn't share like specifics of like names or anything like that, but just like explaining to them like how impactful this patient was for me and how difficult her passing was, because it was like, in hospice, things aren't necessarily unexpected, but her passing was unexpected because nobody saw it coming. Like, she wasn't showing signs that she was going to pass before she passed. And so I was just like, I just like shook it up, because like, what the heck? Like, things happen to me, but this might by far be one that is just like, it takes the cake of like strange things that have happened. Like, I've never had that happen, and I'm shook. So I don't know, but like in a good way, because I'm smiling. So like, I feel good. Like, my girl's with me, you know, she be looking out, and she just wanted to say hi, I guess. I don't know, maybe her and my patient who's passing, you know, maybe she came to just say hello, you know, and yeah, and say hello to me. So yeah, it's things like this as a hospice nurse that just make you be like, okay, like, I know as a nurse, I've made an impact in people's lives, and they're grateful and appreciative, and you know, people have made an impact in my life just as much. And yeah, it's crazy. I just wanted to share that. That's it. That's all. Gotta go back to work.
I feel like that patient, you impacted that patient, and she knew that you were thinking about her, so she wanted you to know that she was still with you. That's what I think.
So this is actually the first story that comes to mind because it was legit horrifying. So we had a patient who came in for a GI bleed, which pretty normal around the parts of the transplant ICU. And they weren't pooping a lot of blood out, but their hematocrit kept dropping. We're like, So we did a bedside EGD, again, completely normal. During the EGD, they found that the bleed or the blood was pooling all in his abdomen and it wasn't coming out, which is why his H&H kept dropping, and we didn't know why. They're trying to control the bleed. They can't. We start massive transfusion protocol, and we are just slamming blood products into this person. And you can see, like, with the more blood that we give, their stomach gets bigger and bigger. I'm like, that's weird. And then they start puking up blood, but they're flat because they were getting their EGD. So we have to emergently stop the EGD, turn them on their side, and you could hear it. You could hear the splatter of the blood before you could even see it. It was so weird. It literally looked like straight out of a horror film. Just all the blood that we had given this person, just out of the mouth, out. And we ended up coding them, and they did not make it. So that's real life of an ICU nurse.
Not necessarily a spooky story, but definitely a horror story.
It is time for scary story number 10. A family hired me as a CNA/nanny for their grandmother who was in the late stages of Alzheimer's. She wasn't communicating much anymore. She would make sounds like E and B-E-E-E-E, but no audible words. It was a completely normal day, and I was helping her to her chair, and she turned to me and said, clear as day, "Thank you, dear." I just stood there shocked for 15 seconds and rushed to get the family because I thought maybe she was having a more lucid moment. I wanted the family to be able to talk to her during this, but when the family came, she didn't make a sound. The rest of the day continued to be normal, but I was still on edge after her lucid moment. I got her all ready and in bed, and before I left, I said, "Anna, is there anything else you want to say to me?" She was staring at the ceiling and turned slowly to me and said again, clear as day, "Take the job." Then she turned away and was silent again. I was floored because I had applied for a job at the nursing school I was going to go to in the fall, but hadn't told the family yet because I didn't want them to feel like I was abandoning Anna. The next day, my nursing school called me and told me I had been accepted for the job. I took it, and Anna died 2 days later. so I didn't even have to tell the family that I was quitting. It felt like a gift from Anna in a very twisted, creepy way, but nonetheless, I think she was looking out for me. This is really interesting to me because it sounds like this patient was in the later stages of Alzheimer's, and lucid moments during the later stages of Alzheimer's are a lot less common. Also, how would she know about the job? What do you guys think? Lucid moment or paranormal activity? I'd love to hear from you. Have a good day.
I definitely think it was paranormal activity. She wouldn't, how else would she have known about the job?
It's your favorite surgical orthopedic nurse, and it's story time. So I work at night. I've been a nurse for 4 years now. And I was told when I first started how we have a unit ghost. And she has been sighted, so yes, it is a lady. She's a middle-aged lady, and at least 2 of our older night shift nurses have seen her. I have not seen her, however. Still to this day, I have not seen her. But she makes her appearances and lets us know that she is there. So, one instance, one of my really good friends, Amanda, was charged, and everything always seems to happen when Amanda is charged and I'm there. It never fails. So, Amanda was charged. We were both sitting in the charger's office. So, the way that our unit is, there are 2 hallways. There's C hallway and D hallway. So, we are sitting in the charger's office that's like at the top of both hallways, and it like connects. So, we're sitting there, and she gets a call on her with Sarah, and then another nurse needed her, so she's like, hey, I'm gonna go check it out. And I said, okay, cool, I'll just sit here and finish documenting what I have to document before heading back out onto the floor. So as I am doing that, there were I think papers, or so there's like a file cabinet like where I was sitting, so there's like a file cabinet, and then there was stuff on top of the file cabinet. So like I said, it's just me in there, nobody else is in there, and like the door is wide open, nobody else is in there, I'm by myself. And all of a sudden there were like paper scraps that like literally just fell down and like startled me. And keep in mind, no gust of wind, no nothing. And then after they fell down on me, then I looked, I was facing away from the door. So then all of a sudden I heard the door slam shut, and I remember calling Amanda on my way there. I said, excuse me, I am never going in the charger's office by myself again. And I said, where are you? Because immediately no. So then I just calmly kind of opened the door and I went to where Amanda was, and I said, never again. And to this day, I have never been in that charger's office by myself. But if I do happen to go in there by myself, I'm in there by myself for less than 20 seconds, because absolutely not. I do not do ghosts. I do not do paranormal. Nothing. See, the thing about Black people, we don't do ghosts. We don't do none of that, because like if something starts to pop off, we run first and ask questions later. So immediately no.
I'm going to tell you about the scariest thing that has ever happened to me while being a nurse, and it happened at my old hospital that I worked at for a couple years. And I had a patient one day. She had cirrhosis of the liver, so she was terminal, and she passed away in just a really terrible way. I went home, got a few hours of sleep, went back to work, and I was doing my first morning patient rounds at 5:30 a.m. I had a patient at the end of the hall, and it just happened to be just across the way from the patient who had passed away the night before. And as I'm walking out of this patient's room after checking on him, I kind of glance over into her room, and it was completely empty, because we had cleaned out all of her belongings. But I saw my charge nurse standing at her window, and she was looking very intently out the window at something. And I'm like, what are you doing? I said she was in there. I could see her silhouette. So it was really dark, and the sun was just starting to come up enough for me to see the silhouette of her body. And I'm like, what are you doing in here? And she slowly like turns her body, and she looks at me and doesn't say anything. So I'm like, okay, weirdo, you're like starting to freak me out. Seriously, why are you in here? And I flipped the light switch on, and as soon as the lights came on, no one was there.
True stories from nurses from Schroeder's Piano RN. My creepiest and scariest ghost story happened for me about a year ago. It's more of a possession story rather than a ghost story. I was helping another nurse with a patient who had lived a very hard life, and he had numerous things going on with him, from cardiac to renal failure. You name it, he had it going on. And this man was very much afraid to die. Every time his heart monitor beeped, he would just go into a complete rage, screaming, "Don't let me die! Don't let me die!" The other nurse and I found out why he didn't want to die. About 0200, his cardiac monitor started alarming VTAC, and we both go rushing into the room, and I pull the crash cart in behind me. When I get into the room, the other nurse is completely white. This man was sitting about 2 inches above the bed and laughing. His whole look completely changed. His eyes just looked pure evil in them, and he had this evil smile on his face. And he laughed at us and said, "You stupid bitches aren't gonna let me die, will you?" And then he laughed again. We were just kind of frozen. I did reach up and hit the code blue button, and when I did, the man went into VFib, and he crashed back down onto the bed. We started to code him, and 20 minutes later, he was gone. 5 minutes after the code was called, several of the code team in the room started to clean up, and that's when the man sat straight up and screams, "You let me die. Too bad." And then begins just laughing maniacally. The man collapses back onto the bed, and we hear this horrible, agonizing scream. I mean, like everybody heard it, even the patients on the other end of the unit. And then you could hear, "Don't let me die," being whispered throughout the entire unit. Every one of the nurses that night was scared and pale, and nobody went anywhere by themselves. By morning, the whispers of "don't let me die" were completely gone. That night, the night shift nurses all said a prayer in the service break room before we left to go home, but we all still had nightmares for weeks. The end.
And that wraps up this video. That was a good last video to end this video. That was the creepiest one out of all of them. Oh my God. I don't know if that was a real story that somebody sent her or something that she made up, but I enjoyed that one. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Please share this with anybody who would love a good and spooky nurse story. And until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.